Thank you everyone for this amazing year so far. This has been quite the roller coaster ride of getting things organized, being able to just roll with the punches with how COVID has happened, and getting the school and the community to continually progress and process things. So thank you everyone for that, and all of your input, thoughts, and attention to what was really our needs, which is the students, our kids. So thank you again. Who is in control right now? Sarah, are you in control?
I myself am in control. I've been working on that, but
okay, that's good.
What do you mean by in control? What can I help you do?
Just question. One thing that I didn't even think about the other times. Do we record these meetings?
So they're actually currently being live streamed on YouTube, and then they're all available there in our history on YouTube.
On history on YouTube. Okay, so they are that way.
Yep.
Okay, just want to.
So that's a good. We always want to give that reminder, just so you don't know that you're being recorded and live streamed right now. Just keep that in mind.
So yeah, thank you everyone.
Not that we would act any differently ever.
No, I'm always my goofy self. So, okay. Well, let's get to it. And again, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Sarah, for putting together and making sure that the agenda was written out. And I apologize for dropping the ball on that. I've had a bit of a week with school and other things, which all of you understand and get. So, okay, with that, welcome. Let us do the approval of minutes from the previous meeting. And I guess I don't have the notes on that. It was, where did they go?
Joanna had posted them in the team,
Yes.
So I think she actually placed them in the chat. I read through them. I actually watched I know I wasn't able to attend last time, but I later watched the YouTube video, and I would motion to approve. It seems like what she wrote happened in the video to me.
You motioned for approval? Okay, do I get a second? I think Bob's talking. I don't know if I can hear him.
Yeah, I'll second the motion there, Dean.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And Bob, are you taking notes for us right now? No. Okay. All right, I'm gonna attempt to do some notes. If anyone else would like to help with notes, then we can maybe put some things together. Approval. Okay, appreciate that. Let us go on. Okay, so I've seen a few more emails going through with the update on the math school improvement data. Can we maybe get a little more information and clarification on that?
So we would love to share the data that we have with you right now, because we have Acadian's middle of year data, and we have our math January data, and our final data collection will be in March for math. So we do have like a whole, I know that it's listed like math school improvement, Acadian's, and then just general school improvement data. We have a little presentation of how we'd like to go. It's actually, could we go ahead and just go into that, and we'll hit all of those points, I think. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's what I think we move to that.
Good
Great.
job, Sarah,
So,
being prepared.
So, well, it was a team effort by all of this awesome King Elementary team that's here today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And
Sarah, I did change the PowerPoint. for me.
You know what? And Jennifer, I'm going to let you share your screen when you go into math data. Is that okay?
Yep, perfect. Okay, I just wanted to make
Or would
sure.
it be easier if I shared it? You're good
No,
to share yours?
No
Okay,
problem. Okay, I'll be quiet.
awesome. No, you're great. Thanks. So I'm going to try and hit my little display. So first of all, I guess I would just ask,
Oh, there you go. I was just going to say if you can mute your microphone thing.
was anybody able to take a look at, or was anybody able to join the, sorry, what was that? The premier kickoff
The
for
the Learning First Premier Planning Day that was
it was on a Friday a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Was there anybody on here that was able to join that or even watch the recording? I posted it in a reply to Dan's linked invitation. It's okay if the answer is no. I'm going to give you like down and dirty one little tiny piece of it.
But we also want to let you know that you are free to watch it now that we have brought it to your attention again, if you would like to.
And we would, in fact, I think we would encourage it because I think it's very helpful in knowing exactly how things have changed this year. So some changes have come into place and kind of going forward with that. So let's begin with teacher and student success plan. There's 3 different terms that you're going to be hearing now, and I think it's important that we understand what they are. So there's this teacher and student success plan, which will be referred to as TSSP. And that is now the new term for our school improvement plan, okay? And the teacher and student success plan is funded, it's written with goals and action steps, and then it is funded by two programs, basically. So one of them is the Teacher and Student Success Act, which is TSSA, and it has a little more wiggle room. And that is the spending of that budget to support our goals is determined by the principal and a team that he creates. And then the land trust program, that still is the land trust budget. And that is the spending of that is determined by community council still, but it must be in support of the goals that have been written. So, and then to clarify, and this is different this year, and like I said, this information is available in that video, but the teacher and student success plan is developed by the principal. So the goals and those action steps, but with input from community council as far as like looking at data and talking about needs, and then the principal takes that and is able to then go ahead and develop a plan that will best fit the school's needs. Dan, did you want to add anything on that?
Nope. Yeah,
Nope.
It's I just was going to mention that the TSSA has only been in effect in Utah for a few years now. And so it's a relatively new funding source, but yeah, it's the TSSA was meant to support, the school improvement plan and the goals of the school. And so, yeah, with regards to the training, just want to reiterate that we value our community council's feedback as we look at our school data, which we're excited to do. But then the primary task of community council is to provide feedback to the administrative team at the school as they create the goals, and then the community council determines the budget or the spending plan and how that will support the school's goals.
So these are slides here. These next 3 slides are directly from that
real
training.
Quick, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Dan, can you say that again? I'm going to write this down, share this. I'm trying to write it, but I really like that thought and I want to get it correct. So the TSSA, not the TSSA, the TSSP, the main goal or the purpose of the community council is to give feedback for
the goals of the
Core
school.
goals.
So we collectively, as a council, we are going to collectively look at some student data, and then it's the school administration's job to construct goals based off of that feedback. And then it's community council's additional job. So after a community council provides feedback to the school, after we collectively look at the data, then it's community council's job to allocate the land trust money in how we're going to spend the money to support the goals that the school has come up with.
Okay.
And then the TSSA is additional money that is going to support the TSSP in the same way that the land trust does, but the TSSA community council does not determine that spending, just the land trust program budget.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick overview of each one individually. We've kind of done that, but in the training, they talk about kind of the process for developing this, right? So that we review the data to determine critical academic needs, and that the administrative team consults with the community council on this data. So some of that data we'll be reviewing today. Not all of it is available today, but we will discuss all of the goals from what we have the previous, or from this year. I apologize. We will discuss, we do have some data that is not the actual data that we're collecting for one of our goals, but we thought that it would be a good talking point at this point where we don't have any data for one of those goals, right? Okay, and then the principal, after doing that, is meant to prepare the TSSP, which is the plan, right? Formerly the school improvement plan, and take that input from the council and apply that in there. Then the community council's job is to help develop the land trust program plan based on the TSSP goals. So it will be your job to help us determine, and really to help determine how the land trust program funds will be spent in support of the teacher student success plan goals. All right. And then as a community council, you approve the plan and then help monitor the implementation of the plan. So that's what you've been doing this year already. Like, how is that going? You've been asking how things are going, what types of things we're doing to try and reach these goals that have been set. And then all of the teacher student success plan is subject to district board approval and actually then state approval. Right, Deb?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's the TSSP, and then we'll look at the two pieces that support the TSSP. So the Teacher Student Success Act is a funding source from legislation in USBE. So they allocate the funding, establish the procedures, and there's not as, so with the land trust program, we have rules about things that we can spend money on. And the TSSA doesn't have those same exclusionary spending rules. It still has to support the goals and be spent to support the goals of the TSSP. The principal is the one who develops this budget and this plan and communicates that with stakeholders. And then obviously the community council should be aware of the plan, but it's not the piece that you approve. And then that also is submitted to the district board and is approved by the district board, the spending plan on that. Okay, and then the land trust program. So money for this comes actually is given to us based on our student count, and it's based on the October 1 counts, which may affect our funding for next year, and we don't have that number yet. But because of COVID, and with students, initially a lot of students being enrolled in Davis Connect or in other schools, because they take that October 1st count, it could significantly decrease our number. And then the administrative team consults with the community council to develop this. right? And we all work together on that. And then community council obviously helps to develop the land trust spending plan and approves the plan, and then helps implement and monitor the plan. And then that's approved by the district board. Okay, were there any questions on that? Okay, sounds good. We're going to move on and we're going to look at some of the data. I was just going to add
and we're super excited about it.
Yes, we are super excited about this data. Our plan for this coming year is, it has to be submitted. I think they said April 2nd is the deadline. So we will have to submit that plan April 2nd to the district for district approval, and then it'll go on for state approval. Okay, so our reading goal this year, we had 2 reading goals. And the first reading goal was based on middle of the year, 2019-2020 student cohort data. Grades 1st through 6th grade will increase the percentage of students who achieve typical, above typical, or well above typical growth by 4% during the 2020-2021 school year. So we're looking at growth here. We're not looking at the proficiency. I'll talk just a bit more in just a second about what those growth bounds look like. And the second goal was kindergarten, because we wouldn't have cohort data from last year for our kindergartners because they would have been in preschool or not enrolled in school. We had to just set like a 60% of kindergarten students will achieve typical or better growth on Acadience Reading Pathways of Progress middle of year benchmark for this year. And so those Pathways of Progress growth indicators are based on beginning of the year to to middle of the year. Okay, so let's look at it. Understanding Pathways of Progress. So when we look at Pathways of Progress, they take a student and where they scored originally at the beginning of the year, and all the other students in the nation that take this test and where they scored at the beginning of the year, and they take all the ones that scored at the same place, all right? And then they
determine different bands of growth that those students that scored with that particular score can achieve. And they've separated the bands into these 5 different bands that you can see in front of you. And so out of all these groups of kids, and let's just say that the group of kids are all the kids that scored a 100 on the composite score. So if they come up with these projections for these kids and how they are going to grow throughout the year, and if they stay in this middle band, then they say in the 40 to 59th percentile, then that means they're making about average growth. And so to reiterate, we want all of our kids to be making at least average growth, that they're making, you know, a middle level of growth. We do not want kids making below typical or well below typical growth. And so if you divided that group of kids that all scored 100 evenly, the even distribution is 20% in each band. So we can tell by looking at percentages of kids if we're doing a good job of helping kids to grow based on the percentage of students that are in each band. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, silence.
Yay, verily, yay.
Now, take yourself off mute, Sarah.
Sorry,
It's the little
it's
button
because
that
I'm
looks like a
working.
microphone.
I am working on one screen tonight from my own house, and that's a sad situation. And the little box disappeared. So it's fine now. Okay. I said it makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to the rest of you.
If you have
so
questions about the growth bands, just ask it now.
And just to clarify, so what we're looking at is it is all by percentage. It's by the more you have in that percentage, is what we're looking at, not necessarily the individual, correct?
We're actually looking, so percentiles, right? So it's a
Percentiles.
little bit, yeah, it's like a bell curve a little bit, right? And we have the average right in the middle there. So actually we find a lot of the times that some of our kids who are not proficient or are meeting proficiency oftentimes are making typical, above typical, or well above typical growth because they're learning and teachers are really intervening and working with them. And sometimes the kids who slip through the cracks that aren't making that growth that they should be making, and this is not all the time, it's just sometimes you'll see this, that kids who are performing well above benchmark or proficiency wise, they actually sometimes will slip down below that line and not make typical growth because sometimes it can be missed or and we've talked about that in this community council actually for a couple of years, at least since I've been here, about how are we continuing to challenge our students who are achieving and who are overperforming? Are we continuing to challenge them? And I think looking at Pathways of Progress is one indicator of, hey, are we making sure we're getting to those kids, right? And we won't be able to see necessarily here because you won't be comparing specific kids, but in our PLCs, we will be looking with our teachers, we'll be looking at specific students who did not make typical or above growth. Who were they and why? Now let's target that and let's change our instruction or our approach. Okay.
Yeah, so we're looking at, again, we're looking at the growth, not where their placement is, but looking at the growth from the beginning to MOY.
Yes, and we feel like that's super important because one, we care about all of our kids, right? Regardless of where they start. If they start behind, if they start on track, or if they start advanced. Regardless of where they are, we want them to grow at least on an average basis, every kid. And we want to be able to celebrate the growth that we make maybe with a struggling student, because it may not be realistic for a struggling student to achieve proficiency by the end of the year. But it can be realistic to aim for well above typical growth. And so it really helps us analyze our teaching practices, and especially when we are really kind of getting into personalized learning at King, where not every student is doing the exact same activity as their neighbor. We're really trying to tailor the instruction and the activities to individual kids. So this is a great opportunity for us to evaluate what teaching strategies are most effective with our kids.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the data from last year, because this is a goal based on cohorts, and that overall we will make a 4% growth in grades in the cohorts that will be in grades 1 through 6 this year. So that means it's the grades that were K5 last year, because we're comparing the same cohort data. So last year we had 56% of students grades K5 perform typical, above typical, or well above typical, or make that growth. And 44% of our students were below typical or well below typical in growth. Okay, so this year,
well, I was just going to point out super quick, Sarah, sorry to interrupt, is that's where we got our 4% goal from. So if everybody looks at the graphic that's in front of you, really to be having an average placement of students in the 3 bands, we should have been at 60%. 60% would have been an average percentage of kids in those 3 bands. And so we were at 56% last year. And so we said to ourselves, well, we should be at least having, the average, if you spread out all the bands on the bell curve, and they were evenly distributed, we should have at least 60% of our student population in those upper 3 bands, but we didn't. And so our goal for this year was that, hey, we want to at least get to 60, because that's where we should be anyway.
Okay, so I did a small switch here. So to 2021, this is this year, middle of the year, just like the last slide was middle of the year. The growth data for grades 1-6, because we're looking at the same cohort, is 63.3% of students fell into the typical or above, typical, above typical, or well above typical bands. And then 36.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so we increased. We increased by a little bit more than 7%.
Huge.
We've been super excited about it all day. We think our teachers have been doing an incredible job and working really hard with those kids. So I know, props to them. Huge.
Okay, and then
So
we're
we not only met our goal, we not only met our goal, but we surpassed it.
Yeah.
We almost doubled the amount of growth that we were hoping for.
And now the best part about this is that we get to now dive into PLCs and look at, and we'll aggregate the data further down in our PLCs with our teachers and look at, hey, what practices are happening in your classroom that is making this change, right? What do you attribute a lot of these things to, and share that so that we can continue to grow in a big way.
And if we can talk about just broad vision really quickly, the things that we are pushing with our teachers right now are personalized learning, engaging in professional learning communities, and making sure that social emotional learning is taking place. And so that's broad vision. Obviously, we're still going to have those individual conversations with teachers to aggregate the data even further, but that's a broad vision of what we're doing at King.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly, because I know we've got to leave time for everybody else in here, but you can see where I've outlined here, these are the cohorts that we looked at in 2020. And so I've color coded them. Red is kind of our first grade color and orange is our second grade color. So even though these kids are in kindergarten last year, it was showing they made 56. So you can kind of see these down the edge here. And there will be another slide that kind of puts them together. So then this is this year's, right? 74% compared to the 56 in first grade last year, right? And all the way down. And here it is right here, all in front of you. So we've got the kinder at 56 last year, and then we took that same cohort, and you can see that this year we had 74% of them making typical or above growth. And then same with the first graders last year, we can see how that affected in second grade. And then second grades last year, 50% of them were typical or above, and this year in third grade, they were able to make 66% of them above that. So 47 to 51, 53 to 59, 64 to 68. So overall, as a whole, we saw very positive and exciting things that were happening. Okay, so we wanted to quickly, this is our last little bit. I just wanted to show you that last year, where you can see all of it right here together, we looked at kindergarten through fifth grade because those were the cohorts we'd be able to measure again this year. 56, we had 56 that were typical or above, 56%, excuse me. And then this year, we measured first through sixth grade because it's the same cohorts there. And you can see that overall we had 63.3%, which was a 7.3% increase. Okay. So then I'm moving on. Is everybody ready for that? Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
I'm curious. I mean, this is fantastic growth, and I'm really glad to see that, we're making progress. Are we able to identify where our kids are sitting as far as proficiency goes on average for the school? Not growth, but where they're sitting. So how many of our kids are at a 60% or where they're sitting in those bands?
Yep, we can definitely look at that, and we have that data with our teachers. It's not prepared for you tonight because mostly because our goal is based on growth.
But are you asking about proficiency, or are you asking about knowing which students are in these bands?
I'm just curious what the percentage of our kids are at what proficiency.
Okay, so you're just wanting to know, you know, what kids are 85% and above, meaning that they're proficient that way. And the short answer I can tell you is this: is that when you have greater growth, it impacts proficiency. But I don't have our proficiency data with us because we were just focusing on addressing the goals that are on our school improvement plan. But we can totally get that data.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd be curious to see where they changed. It looks like they'd probably move in the right direction. But yeah, that's
right.
Fabulous growth.
Yeah, and the one thing you have to remember though is that if it is a below proficient student, we do want to celebrate the growth, but that student may not have achieved proficiency, which is why we like to look at the growth, because for us, the growth tells the entire story.
Yep. Okay, good question. Thank you, Megan. We will get that and get it out to you, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so one of our other goals was a TSI, so a goal, a targeted school improvement goal, which, Dan, you can explain a little bit more on that, yeah?
Yeah, targeted school improvement is something that's relatively new, and essentially our school, you know, they look at subgroup performance data, and they looked at our special education student population, and we did not have a certain percentage of students that improved a proficiency band. So, and I'm talking about a proficiency band. So just, I don't think we have a slide, but 0 to 60 is the red band. So that's kind of in the, hey, we're really struggling. 60 to 85 is the yellow band, and then 85 to 100 is the green band. So this is a new type of testing that the state has come up with. I can't say that I particularly like it, I guess, because sometimes our special education students, and going back to why we prefer growth over proficiency, some of our students, they may not even be what we would call a bubble kid, or a kid that's close to the edge of one band and moving to the next band. And so, you know, we still work with every kid that we have to try to improve their learning and help them grow, but they may not change bands. And so our school did not have enough kids that changed bands from red to yellow or yellow to green. And so we were identified as a targeted school improvement. And so in order to address, you know, being labeled as a TSI school, we made a specific goal with regards to special education. And then I'll let Sarah go to the next slide.
Yeah, and actually, I think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to add, because it was written in the beginning of your goal, I think, so just to clarify, this is end of level testing, right? And then it's when for 2 years in a row we score in a subgroup below or in the bottom 5% of the state, right? I think that's what it was. So
if that's what the beginning of the goal said, yes.
Okay, so 80% of students with disabilities will improve their proficiency scaled score by 1 band in the category of language arts as measured by state mandated end of level testing. So that was our goal, to help improve our student performance on end of level testing. What we obviously don't have that data, and we probably won't have that data until October, maybe November of next year. But because the goal is in language arts, we do have reading data, growth data on our special education students. So we wanted to show you, this is our 2020 middle of the year special education students. So it's aggregated out for that. For 45.7% of students made typical or above growth, okay? And this year, 64.1% of students made typical or above growth.
Wow.
And these are a subgroup of special education.
That's
super.
Wow. That is so great. Okay.
So we were so excited to share this data with our special education team. They've been working hard with Sarah and I to implement best practices. in their classroom, and they have been super open to trying new interventions to try to help kids. And so we were super tickled that we, that we were able to have that type of growth, with our special education population.
What was the
And
number
granted-
last year?
The number last year, and that the number last year was 45.7.
Wow, yeah. Quite a jump.
So, yeah, pretty awesome. We thought that was fantastic. Obviously, this is not the data that will apply to our goal, but we did want to
We
Yeah.
can
share
see
with
some
you.
of it.
Right, but we're using that data as a preliminary type of checkpoint for us, as because we don't get our, we're not going to do testing until the end of the year, and so at least this can give us an idea of where we're sitting with our special education kids.
Yeah. Okay, Jennifer, we're ready for you to go on to math.
Okay, I guess I can do it.
Thank you.
That was funny. That was supposed to be funny, but apparently not. So much. Okay,
Yes,
so
you
I'm gonna share
can.
my screen.
I just want the clouds back. Yay.
Can't have the cup back, sorry.
One of these days, I want you to make like a tinsel halo and
Stop.
just like put it. Okay.
On YouTube live stream.
Okay, so I'm going to be speaking to the math school improvement goal. And some of this data we saw, some of this information we saw at the November meeting when I was there, but now we're going to go a little bit further in depth. So again, our goal was 70% of students will demonstrate proficiency, which, as Dan has said, is 85% or higher in their grade level on one determined DESC priority standard. And those diagnostics or benchmarks were built by grade level teams and myself. Okay, the priority standards are the most essential content in the grade level, and they highlight the major work of the grade level. So that's what they are. And each grade level has 3, and there's one grade level that has 4. As we're going through administering the assessment window is listed here. So beginning of year, middle of year, and our end of year will be there in March, 15th through the 19th. We're analyzing the data during our PLCs each time after we've administered that. And also, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And these are the data dives discussion points. What are we looking at? Trends, how we can move students, the content and specific things, how we can implement that. Okay, so why do we do this? Well, the priority standards are the most essential of the content. We are required as teachers to teach all of the standards. The priority standards are the ones that we're going to spend the most time in because it has been determined by the State Board of Education as well as Davis School District that these are the most essential, the most important, that in order for students to be successful as they move through. These assessments that we give help students to see the student progress towards that priority standard. And by assessing the data three times, I just lost my window of people. Okay, we get data, and the data is used by teachers to target specific areas that still need work and areas in which students are ready to move to deeper levels of understanding. So we're looking at both of those things. Okay, so what happens in between assessments? So teachers identify from the data areas of concern and of extension. Teachers then address these areas in a targeted, specific, explicit, deliberate way in whole group, small group, one-on-one instruction, and use supplemental software. And we currently have from the STEM Action Center a grant for iReady and ST Math. And grade levels are using one of those two things with fidelity. There are some things that we have to do to meet the grant requirements as far as usage and number of lessons completed in each of those programs. And each student is only doing one of those programs. And then there are some other examples of what teachers are doing in number talks. Number talks are a specific routine where students are working in mental math situations. So they're not computing on whiteboards or pencil and paper, and they have an opportunity to speak their process and to share with other students. It is completely student driven. And then we have math discussion in small group where our students are able to share their ideas with each other and discuss back and forth as well as alternate strategies where we're targeting specifically these questions. Okay, our intent where we're going forward is to continue to use these assessments to move students toward achieving the proficiency in their grade level mathematics priority standards. And if you have questions, you're going to have to say something because I lost middle screen. Okay, so how are we doing? This is you're finally going to get some data points. There's a couple of things that I want you to be aware of when I start to show you these slides. First of all, it does, in the gray bar that will be on the left, it does state which particular priority standard and key points of them that we are doing, that it does not change or has not changed from what I showed you in November. And I will be showing you two pie charts, one that shows you the beginning of your data and the second that shows you the middle of your data. So two things to remember is that math is measured by mastery, not growth. So you will see an increase in the number of students who are proficient, but we are testing them to determine if they have mastered the content or not. So this proficiency standard is about if they've mastered it or not. So they know it or they don't know it. And the second piece is these are current grade level standards, and we expect proficiency as we move towards the end of the year. So if you think about that, then we would expect most of our students currently to be in the middle, the yellow area, which is we're approaching proficiency, but we haven't all necessarily met it yet. So just keep those in mind as we go through this data. And I have it listed by grade level. So here we go. So again, kindergarten is counting and cardinality. And at the top graph, we had 9% in October who were proficient. And now we have 51% of our kindergarten students are proficient on this assessment. And so you are aware, this assessment is given orally and it's one-on-one. So each student has an opportunity to go through that individually with the teacher, and they're not influenced by any of their peers. So this kindergarten assessment is, it takes some bits to get it together, but we are moving in the right direction with those students. And I know that our kindergarten team has focused on some key areas from October, and they will continue to do so as we move through into February and March. First grade, representing and solving problems involving addition and subtraction. So we started off with 1% of our student body in first grade was proficient, with 12% approaching, and we are now at 12% are proficient, and 50% of our students in first grade are approaching. So if we look at those numbers, we're currently at 62%, and that is where we would like them to be and expect them to be this time. They're at or above in our movement, and we're very close to that 70% if we move and continue in that trend. Second grade, use and understand and use place value. And again, those things are over there on the side. We have 2% and then 19%. And we've maintained our 2% who are proficient, and we've increased those who are approaching to 26%. Third grade is multiplication and division. And we had 6% proficient at the beginning of the year. And just so you're aware, if you did not know this, third grade is the first time students see multiplication, the very first time. So they are working towards having, as you'll see over on the side, from memory, all the products of 2 one-digit numbers. That's what they're working towards. This is the first time they've been introduced to it. So we went from 6% proficient to 18%. So we've tripled our numbers there, and we're moving more and more students towards proficient. We maintained our yellow pretty much. We've decreased those who are limited. And again, and just to reiterate, in third grade, I know they're specifically targeting pieces of that assessment and doing number talks to help students voice. We've learned that in mathematics, the students have an opportunity to share their thinking process and to reflect on what they know with other students. that their understanding increases and their ability to do increases. Fourth grade is represent and understand multiplication and division. And we went from 2%, we went from nobody proficient, and now we're at 8%. And we dropped from 98% that were limited to 60% that are limited. So we're moving again in a good direction, and we're going to continue to target and do more intense targeting in those areas. This is the first place where they start to really get into multi-digit multiplication and move into what division means in, again, multi-digit division. They didn't do that in third grade. So we're applying all of those things that you did in third grade. We're using that multiplication as tool in fourth grade. That's where we're headed. Fifth grade, we take multiplication and division and we move it to the next level. So in fourth grade, we had single digit divisors. That's the number that goes into it. And now we're in 2-digit divisors, and we also have included decimals. So we are you can see there the layering that has happened from one grade level to the next. So it's really nice to be able to look at that. We went from 7% in the yellow and nobody in the green to 2% in the green and 26% in the yellow. And in sixth grade, we're into rational numbers. So this is multiplication and division with fractions. We have negative numbers. We have decimals. This is really the capstone, if you will, of much that we do in K-5 arithmetic. And we're also moving into the algebra piece. So this is from fifth grade to sixth grade, we're really doing a mental shift. As far as mathematics, we're going from arithmetic based to algebra based. And they will continue that through eighth grade and then move into a secondary mindset where you have you have algebra, you have geometry, you have trigonometry, you have lots of different pieces that bring it. So this is the first steps in that direction. So we started off with no one proficient, 13% in the yellow, and we have moved to 4% in proficient and 28% in the yellow. And one of the things that I want you to be aware of is that when they're dividing fractions in sixth grade, these are not simple things. They are mixed numbers they have to divide. They also have to do it in context, so in a story problem, and out of context. So there's quite a lot that we are expecting from the students, and we are moving them in that direction. They're being successful. So that is the end of the presentation. Do I have any questions or anything you want me to go back through?
With some of the grades, go ahead if someone else had a comment.
No, go ahead on.
I was just going to say with some of the grades, like second grade, seems a little rougher than some of the other grades. Is it that the expectations feel different, per grade level? Go back, like second grade, for example, like if the goal is to get 85% proficient by end of year?
The goal is to get 70% of our students proficient.
Okay.
And proficient is recognized as 85% or higher on the assessment.
Oh, I see. Okay, 85% or higher on the assessment, 70%. So yeah, I guess that was just my questions. It seems like there's quite a difference between some of the grade levels. What do you think the cause for that is? And is there any specific attention being placed at like specific grades, or how is this data being used to kind of influence behavior and teaching and such?
Okay, well, I can speak to a couple of things, and that's part of that is when we look at our curriculum maps, again, and I'll speak to second grade, this is something that's going on throughout the course of the year. So they're really going to be hitting hard in their whole class instruction, moving into that at this time. I know that the teachers are also changing up their small group instruction specific to this and are targeting specific areas of the assessment and have started doing that beginning last week.
So yeah, and Adam, I mean, one thing that we try to, now that we have our data that it has been collected, I mean, I think some grade levels struggled because the priority standard, the scope and sequence of when they were going to initially teach students was not for maybe, and I haven't verified with every single grade level that they have even in fact completed initial instruction on the priority standard, because with some grade levels, the scope and sequence of the priority standard had already been determined by the grade level before. So to give an example, maybe the grade level was not planning on teaching the priority standard until February. And so what some grade levels have done is they have supplemented here or there with what we refer to as tier 2 intervention time, or maybe they have dedicated some routines. But as far as explicit instruction goes, maybe that has been on the weak side. But
Right.
with each grade level, we will be identifying with them, what have you done to try to address this goal? And then we'll be comparing the impact of other grade levels and talking to them about what they have done. I really like this type of a goal for our school because we don't have a formative assessment that can guide our mathematic instruction unless we make a goal where we create formative standardized assessments like this, because we don't have any other type of formative assessment that's standardized, that's provided from the state or even the district. So, for me, getting teachers to use formative data so that it can guide their instruction is crucial, because if we only rely on summative data where it's the autopsy, it's the year is over, there's nothing, there's nothing we can do about it then. But if we're taking our temperature as we go, then we can actually do something about it. And so we're definitely going to be having conversations with grade levels. We're definitely going to be doing some cross-grade analysis, because I think looking at the data, you can see that not every grade level is progressing in the same way. And that's because all of our teachers, they teach in different ways, they utilize different routines and activities, they allocate different amounts of time. And so we actually have a model, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, it's called the FIT model. And so with our interventions, we're analyzing the frequency, the intensity, the time, and the type as it relates to the intervention. And so those are the types of discussion that we're having and that we're going to continue to have with our grade level teams.
Yep.
Right, I was just, go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, some of the interventions, for example, with kindergarten, and they did more counting routines as they went down the hall. They did more counting routines as they lined up for recess and left. So there was they put new routines in place to help the students, and you can see the evidence in place here.
And so that would be an effective teaching practice that we would be pointing out to other grade levels that may not have seen the same types of growth. And we would probably be having discussions like, okay, what types of routine-based activities can you implement during the week that's going to help strengthen the understanding, so that we can improve the proficiency of students with the math goal.
And I was just going to add that I think that's what a lot of our PLC conversations have been, because we've looked at this data with all of our grade levels, looked at their own data, and just add to what Jennifer was saying, that like we have been talking about, what are you doing? Okay, what can we do instead, right? And a lot of that is spiral review, right? Just integrating it throughout the year as opposed to just waiting for when you teach the bulk of that unit.
PLCs or teachers coming together to share best practices. Is that what those are?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's a professional
learning community.
Oh, okay.
Jinx.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. It's to share best practices based on data. So we look at data to start generating questions, and then we have conversations about that and let the data guide the discussions about well, we can see that your students are growing much faster comparatively to others, right? What are you doing differently? And
Cool.
share those best practices. Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so we do have our school technology specialist, Adam Taylor, on here, just to give you a quick overview of what the school improvement, some of the school improvement funds have been spent on this year as far as technology that has helped us, especially during this pandemic. And I know we had met and talked about this spending of land trust money last year, and then we shut down right after. So it went pretty quickly where we needed to have updated devices going well. And then he's also going to just chime in and let us know maybe what some good focus areas for next year would be, and then we'll try and wrap it up so we can stay to time.
Yeah,
if that's okay.
Just as a note, we are currently at 6:57. So
Got it.
thanks, Adam.
We'll see how brief I can be.
Can you speed talk?
I think I can handle this. Okay, so let's see. Can you guys see my screen now? I think so. If you go to the district webpage and search for refresh, you'll come to this computer refresh screen, and you can get all of the details about how it works. And the big important thing for this year is we got half of our refresh last year over the summer early for this year. Okay. So based on what Sarah just said, it looks like this is what we need to look at then. So last year we used the funds for, so we bought our required iPads, we bought our required student devices, and Community Council did fund a large, they funded the upgrade to touch devices. That's not something that the refresh money that the district sends us covers. But again, to help all of our students access these devices in multiple ways, we felt that touch was a good upgrade. And from watching the students interact with them, I would 100% agree that that they really do interact better with that touch upgrade. So for this year, once we shut down, the district gave us the 52 devices and 80 devices that we were planning on. But they also started giving us next year's refresh. So they already gave us 54 iPads and 70 cloud books. So the things that we need to focus on are maintaining enough devices for all of our students, plus an 8% minimum hospital. So as they have devices, we can just swap them out and not have to have kids without access. So at minimum, we'll need to buy 20 more cloud books and 10 more iPads. Prices aren't settled yet. The things that the district will still fund this year is basically $1,000 for 9 teacher devices. Anything above that will need to be funded by the school. So if we just plug in, these prices are again from last year.
Okay, just so you realize that $1,000 is one iPad, right?
Well, for us, we get them for about $307 plus $20 for a case. Yeah. Okay. But we're looking at just for the devices that we need to maintain our minimal requirements, the school is going to need to come up with $16,000 just for those devices that we haven't gotten yet. Okay. So, but we might not need to spend as much on projectors. We were planning on refreshing our sit-down desktop computer lab. That's probably not something that we need to focus on this year. So we might be able to take the money that we would normally plan for that and shift it to something else, to those other devices. I think that's my time. Do you have any other questions for me?
Hey, I would just add, I think that actually the staff devices, I don't know that we can even fund any of that from any of the land trust fund. But
yeah, correct. That $1,000 is, the district has allocated $9,000 for staff devices, so we wouldn't need to take money out of it for community from land trust funds. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Thanks, Adam. But yeah, we invited Adam because, as you know, the community council is tasked with developing a budget for the land trust money. And so, in my opinion, technology is something that you can't afford to not address in some way each year, because just like when you don't pull weeds in your garden, then the weeds get out of control. And so in the same way, if we don't allocate money from land trust and we put it off for a year, then the weeds are going to grow even bigger, and then it will require even more money the following year. So that's just something that I wanted our community council members to keep in mind.
And the prices haven't come in yet, but I'll keep you guys up to date with that. Another thing we need to consider is we don't know how many devices we're going to have to completely replace due to damage. We don't know how many devices will be great, and we also don't know our numbers for next year. So we'll keep you posted as those things change or get updated.
How much
Okay,
money do we have?
Oh, for in our land trust?
Yeah. Wasn't it
don't know
like
yet.
$7,000 last year?
No, we actually do have an estimate, but I actually don't have it off the top of my head, but we do have a preliminary estimate.
It's typically in the 60,000
Oh, it's that high.
range.
I think I was missing a zero. Okay, that's helpful.
I just wanted to, I know that
Can we
702,
add a
I just
zero?
wanted.
Can we add a zero? If it's going to be imaginary.
Really quickly that if you have additional questions, and I know that we did a lot of presenting tonight, and we would love to have feedback and thoughts about what you're thinking. I can, we can share some of our thoughts with you, but we would be happy to schedule, like in 2 weeks, the last week in February, just an optional, like everybody can jump on, a informal, like, hey, I had some thoughts I wanted to share with you. Or if Tuesday the 26th, I think it is, in the evening at 6 doesn't work for you to have a little Q&A with us, we'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one with you and get some feedback before we start to do some of those goals. So would it be, and if I'm crossing the line, Dan, just like mute me or something, but would it be okay if we tentatively, or if we scheduled an optional meeting? It wouldn't be broadcast, it wouldn't be official because nobody's voting on anything, but where we just receive some feedback from you guys based on some of the data that we've presented, and we have some conversation about like our thoughts and feelings about the types of goals that we want to continue using. And I would say, just so you're aware, I think this cohort data in growth has been so awesome to see, because teachers, so often you're looking at a different group of kids, and now we're able to look at the exact same group of kids and say, okay, did you increase how much they were, how many students were growing at typical or above? So I think it's the 20, is that the 26th? Would everybody be okay if we schedule something there? It's not it's the 23rd. It's not a required meeting. Yeah, 23rd at 6.
And then people could post things in our community council teams as well as a precursor to the meeting, but it would be kind of just a brainstorming, type of a meeting.
Okay. And I don't know if Megan Morris is on here anymore or not, but she had asked to kind of see what our old goals were. And so Dan has posted, yeah, it's on Teams. So if you don't know how to access the chat, I mean, you guys can send me an email quickly and I can give you a call sometime tomorrow and help you access the chat or the post in there so that you can add to it and also look at some of the stuff that we're posting in there. And then I will repost the video of the training that we had. I think it would be really helpful, especially because we think the district is wanting us to incorporate an SEL goal.
Yeah, I just checked on it, and it's there. It's available. So I really like that.
And I'll repost it so that everybody can see it really easily.
Okay,
and we'll go from there. Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, and so we are over time. Some of the things that we want to do then is get together later in the month so that we can be better prepared for discussing the year's school improvement goals and initiatives for next year. and I really like that idea. I'm going to put that on my schedule. And Sarah, if you can even, while you're in Teams putting up that other, if you can just send out an invite so that we can put it onto our calendars and have that notice, that'd be awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bob, thank you for your help as well. And I'm also, let's see, that I think is the things we are going forward. That covers everything thus far. All right, Adam, being vice chair, do you have any other questions, concerns, or comments you'd like to add to?
No, nothing for now.
All right, Dan?
No, just appreciate everybody. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you very much for everyone's help.